It's an honor to be here. It's an honor to be here on this day, Martin Luther King. You know, and your celebration of this great institution. I was looking up your mission statements, by the way. And it says that you guys are really nurturing leadership and philanthropy to meet 21st century needs. You ready for that? I always say that 21st century needs are 20th century needs that were 19th century needs, that were 18th century needs, or 17th century needs. In the words of James Baldwin, we are our history. You know, we always say that when people come from impoverished environments where there's a lot of violence, and then they go on to sort of lead very challenged lives, and they're imprisoned, and people will always say, oh, they're a product of their environment. We're all a product of our environment. We are an amalgamation of everything that has happened in history, whether it's cultural or personal. We are an amalgamation of black codes and Jim Crow and women's lack of rights and triumphs and Martin Luther King and Mahatma Gandhi. I'm a product of my mom, who was 15 years old when she had my brother, and when she got married, I'm a product of her, you know, being born into a life, being one of 18 children born in Singleton Plantation, South Carolina, being an abuse survivor. I am the product of an alcoholic father, of poverty, of education, of this. I'm a product of all of it. All of it follows me. This is what I say. We need heroes. And I don't mean heroes with capes who jump out of planes or who have a large net worth. I'm talking about heroes, people who live a life bigger than themselves. You know, Joseph Campbell, who was a great intellectual and a expert on myths, created this whole journey of a hero. He said heroes are usually born into an ordinary world where they don't fit in. Something about it just doesn't work for them. They sort of feel like a square peg being put into a round hole. And something happens in that ordinary world where they get a call to adventure, where they have to venture outside of that ordinary world that they felt comfortable in for so long. And they have to venture forth to find that something, that elixir, that truth, that something that's going to make their lives make sense. And they don't heed the call. They hem, they haw, they do whatever. And then they have a mentor who enters their life and pushes them along. And they go forth and they slay dragons. They have allies, they have tests. They have to go to their inmost cave where they find what they're most afraid of, and they usually have to face themselves. And then one of the last parts of the journey is when they almost lose their life. And they get it back again. They get that golden, beautiful elixir, that answer. And then they piggyback to their ordinary world and they share it with others. That is the journey of a hero, okay? Now, if this great institution is massaging you to wield a sword, not just a diploma, how are you going to be a hero? How are you going to be a hero in a culture that doesn't embrace its history? Here's the thing about history. I compare it to cultural history and then my personal history. I always feel like, listen, my personal journey was one of being born 1965, Singleton Plantation. My mom had an 8th grade education, my father a 2nd grade education. And I was born in my grandmother's house with no indoor plumbing, running water, nothing. And then my family moved to Central Falls, Rhode Island when I was 2 months old. And exactly what you think of Central Falls, Rhode Island in 1965 is what it is. So here we were, a family of 8 at the time. Well, really, just 6, because my sister Diane and my brother John stayed behind because we couldn't afford to raise them. Oh. So here I was, 1965, in a predominantly white community and living in abject poverty. Now, I always say abject poverty is a rung lower than poor. We call it po in my culture. Where, you know, you're pouring buckets of water in a toilet in order to flush it. You know, you have the TV that doesn't work, and another TV that does work, with the antenna that you put aluminum foil on where you're trying to get the reception. No phone, because that was back in the day when you had to pay for long distance, so we never had a phone. Plaster coming off the walls, the ceiling caving in. Almost never did we have heat or hot water. We lived in a condemned building that was infested by rats. Oh. Okay, because here is the other thing about poverty. You're invisible. Nobody gives a crap about the poor. Okay, I'm gonna be honest with you. And I know because I lived it. You don't have access to great housing or education or medical care or resources. You have to rely on the kindness of strangers, per se. And here I was, this young girl who inside of me, once again, I was born into a world where I did not fit in. I knew that there was something out there more than I was seeing. And then what happens? The mentor, the person who comes into your life, who pushes you along, who just massages whatever is rumbling inside of you. That came in the form of my sister Diane, who I met for the first time when she was 9. She came to live with us, finally. My father said, we gotta take care of our kids, May Alice. And so she came to Rhode Island and she told me to look around that apartment, 128 Washington Street. And she said, you don't wanna be like this when you grow up, do you, Viola? I said, no. She said, then you gotta want something more. So what do you want? I said, I don't know. She said, you gotta want it. The call to adventure, the mentor implanting that first seed of curiosity, of dreams, of hope. It was very hard to get to the point of even understanding what I wanted because I was saturated in a house that was filled with violence and alcoholism, addiction issues. I was a bedwetter until I was 14 years old because of the trauma. I would go to school with predominantly white kids and white teachers feeling very out of place with shoes that had no soles to them in the dead of winter. There were always 2 sizes too small. And then I had to run home from school. As soon as that bell rang, I took off running. I'm surprised I didn't qualify for the Olympics. Because I would have the same 8 to 9 boys chasing me, calling me, "You ugly black nigga." Ugly. They would pick up sticks and bricks, anything they could find.
Wow.
And the anger and the vitriol. And I would run, snot dripping, running, crying. Call to adventure. What is that call? You have a mom at home who I love more than anything in the world, just trying to survive. That's what you try to do when you're poor. You're just trying to survive. So no one is throwing me a rope to really pinpoint what it is that I wanted to do. All I was doing was running. And then, once again, at 128 Washington Street, with the little ears on the TV, I saw something that completely transformed my life, which was Miss Tyson in the autobiography of Miss Jane Pittman. And oh my God, I saw an artist, this chocolate actress with full lips and dark skin and her little fro and beautiful cheekbones that reminded me of my mom, transforming from the age of 18 to 105. It was like magic. And I thought to myself, that's it. That's my call to adventure. That's what I want to do. I'm going to be an actress. That's what I'm going to do. And every time I went to school, I was like, you may call me this or that, but guess what? I'm going to be an actress. I'm going to practice my autograph right now. I'm going to be an actress. I'm going to be an actress. Viola, what do you want to do? Oh, well, I'm thinking about being an actress. It's amazing when you find your passion and it drives you. It makes you put your feet on the ground in the morning and makes you jump up before you start your day, right? And everywhere I went, I said I wanted to be an actress. Still living in poverty, still in violence, still in Central Falls, Rhode Island. But everywhere I go, I studied that craft with razor sharp focus. I went to young people's school for the performing arts. I took 3 buses one way, 3 hours, 14 years old, 3 hours. Last leg of the trip was 1 mile. I took it on foot. I said, I'm going to be an actress. I participated in Rhode Island State Drama Festivals. I went to school to be an actress, graduated, got my BA degree from Rhode Island College. I was like, oh, let me tell you, I'm going to be even better than what my mom and dad were. They had an 8th and 2nd grade education. I had focus. I had goals. And then after I graduated from college and I got my BA degree in theater, I said I'm going to take a year off and get a boyfriend, become a professional actress, and then I'm going to travel, I don't know, outside the country. I did all 3. I got a really crappy boyfriend, by the way. I should have asked for a really good boyfriend. And then after that, I was like, what would be the best course of action? I had it together. And I said, I'm going to go to Juilliard. I'm going to go to one of the top schools in the world. You know, I'm going to study acting, and then afterwards I'm going to get an agent. And I did all of it. 4 years of training at Juilliard, New York City, hoofing it, doing it all. Graduated from Juilliard, bam, hit a wall. And you know what wall I hit? I hit the wall of my past coming back to haunt me. At 28 years old, my career was going, slowly. doing Broadway, off-Broadway, regional theater, then going into TV and film. But what's chasing me was that 8-year-old girl running from Hunt Street School and being chased by the 8 or 9 boys who were calling me black, ugly nigger. And being raised in a family where I felt worthless. The past is powerful. The past sometimes has so much weight that it can define you when you ignore it. And see, I always feel that there's 2 camps. And the 2 camps are the people who have the goals and the people who have the purpose. And the people who have the goals are usually, like me, I'll put myself in there, where everything was about me, sort of mistaking my presence for the event, thinking that having worth and being somebody had to do with academics, had to do with status, had to do with what I did, had to do with success. Or the other camp where I would say, you know what, I'll go back and help my community because, you know, I have a BA degree in theater, I know how to speak, you know, I can do it all. But not really speaking it plain. Coming from the heart. It's like the famous saying, you can only understand people when you feel them in your heart. So I would leave my past behind and I would bring my education to the podium. Those are the 2 camps. You know, I sat next to a life strategist not too long ago, maybe like 10. I sat next to him at a party. Of all the people to sit next to at a party, I sat next to a life strategist. And this was when I was in the throes of work and, I don't know, 18-hour days. That's another conversation that we don't have time for. And I was disillusioned with feeling like, what is it? I told him. I said, listen, I dreamed of this my entire life. My entire life I prepared for this. I worked hard. My parents were fighting. My father drunk again. I love my dad more than anything. He was an alcoholic. The poverty, the feeling shame because I smelled a lot of times. I mean, I worked myself out of that. And now I got it. I got the golden ticket. I got the elixir. So why do I feel bad? And he said, because Viola, everybody says what you need to work for is success. That's a cap. You shoot for a goal, which I said, I'm going to be a really great actress. That's what I want. I want people to throw roses at me during a curtain call. That's what I want. If I can hit that, that's what I want to be Miss Tyson. He said, and that's the cap. But they forget about the final cap. And that's significance. It's transcendence. It's as Irvin Yalom said, who is an existentialist psychotherapist. He says, when the last person who has a memory of me dies, that's when I'll truly be dead. Man, we gotta leave a legacy. And where we are now is we're in a crisis of ideology. That's all it is. is people sort of living for ourselves and not understanding, like Martin Luther King said in his mountaintop speech, I've seen the mountaintop. I really want to live a long life. I do. But I'm sure he knew. He was suffering from pneumonia at the time of that speech, which was a day before he was assassinated. And he went out there because he was fighting for the sanitation workers in Memphis who had signs up that said, I am a man. I am a man. Sanitation workers who were being paid such low wages that they had to supplement their income with welfare. But he was there fighting. Because here's the thing about a hero, what I've realized, and it's one of the things I had to realize too, when I was getting to that inmost cave that I talked about, where you have to face yourself. A hero just stays 5 minutes longer than anyone else. A hero has to sacrifice and be the first person who jumps off the cliff. Because you have to understand that just like our lives where there are strongholds, memories that hold on, trauma that can dictate your life, we also have cultural trauma. We also have a country that is so beautiful and has such an awesome mission statement and has had beautiful, awesome moments, but then moments where people have suffered. So, is your job to get a diploma or to get a sword? And if you're going to pick up that sword, what are you going to be fighting? 21st century problems, 20th century problems, 19th century problems, 18th century problems, 17th century problems. That's what you're going to be fighting. You're going to be fighting a country that is steeped in history. Policies that have been put in place that have kept people down so long that now the side effects are brutal and damaging. You have sex trafficking that has grown 846% in the last 5 years. You have women who die during childbirth in astronomical rates. You have 95% of people in prison who have never had a trial. I can keep going. So what happens when you go out into the world and you say, okay, it's like the famous saying, the 2 most important days of your life is the day you were born and the day you discover why you were born. I guarantee you, the reason why you were born is to live a life way bigger than yourself. But in order to do that, you have to face your own demons too. You do. And you have to understand that you gotta count it all joy. You do. I remember when I was 9 years old and my parents were fighting. And it was a brutal fight in the middle of the night. And I started screaming so loud because it spilled out into the middle of the street. And I was like, oh my God, you know, my father is gonna kill my mom, oh my God. I just was screaming and I couldn't stop screaming. And my sister Diane said, oh, Viola, you know, because here's the thing, domestic violence is the last of the acceptable violences. Nobody cares, nobody listens. I mean, they really don't. That needs to change too. So I'm screaming at the top of my lungs. And my sister Diane said, you gotta go into the bathroom, Viola. You gotta go back in the house. No one can hear you. And so I run into the house, I run into the bathroom, I shut the door, and I fall on my knees. And I put my hands together. And I say, God, if you exist, you would take me out of this life. And I'm counting to 10, and when I open my eyes, you better have plucked me out of this life, God. And I really believed it. And I closed my eyes, and I said, 1. And I got to 9, said 9, 10. And I opened my eyes, and I was still in the same bathroom. My big aha moment is God did take my life. He kept me exactly where I was so that when I got to a place of healing, of forgiveness, of reconciliation, of success, of significance, that I could understand and have compassion for people who do live in poverty so they're not invisible. People who have been sexually assaulted, people who do live with alcoholism. Because here's the thing, and here's my elixir to you, is you can either leave something for people or you can leave something in people. And we can't criticize if we don't inject and implant ourselves heart, blood, sweat, and tears to help the least of these. Martin Luther King did it. Power concedes nothing without a demand. You tell me what any people will quietly submit to, and I will show you the exact measure of injustice and wrong that will be imposed upon them. And they will continue until they are met with words or blows or both. Let's use our collective power to just move the world forward with kindness and compassion, to live a life of significance. Thank you.